Hi, class. I'm sorry we're not in class tonight at Albertus. Hope you got my email messages and my telephone calls letting you know that we weren't going to have class tonight at Albertus. We'll do the same thing next week. All of our meetings next week will be online, so you'll have a video like this with a little bit more information than what I'm going to give you tonight. But tonight, instead of meeting in class, all you have to do is watch this video, and that will count as your class for tonight. Tonight we're supposed to be looking at the Gospel of Mark. So I hope you've already done those readings. You had 3 chapters to read for this week on the Gospel of Mark, 2 by Tatsong Benny Liu, and another by Middleton. In all those articles, I wanted you to pay attention to how the Gospel of Mark creates identity. Specifically, the article by Middleton talks about how that identity is wrapped up in the idea of suffering. And you'll see that as you read through the Gospel of Mark, specifically the passage that Middleton points out for you. So look at how that identity is constructed around suffering and watch for 2 things. Not so much how Mark describes suffering in Jesus' time, but why is there a need for the Gospel of Mark to write about that kind of suffering and persecution? It has less to do with the events that happened in the life of Jesus and more to do with the events that happened in the life of Mark's community. In other words, most likely Mark's community is dealing with some kind of suffering. And because of that suffering, Mark projects that suffering into history so that they can identify with the ancient community around Jesus. So they were persecuted in Jesus' time, and we're being persecuted now. So it creates an identity of suffering that helps the modern audience, the modern readers of Mark, get through their own suffering. So they project their own situation back into the life of Jesus and find themselves in that narrative that gives them strength to face the things they're dealing with right now. So Middleton does a good job at showing how that aspect of suffering builds community in Mark's own situation. The other thing to look forward to in those readings and pay attention to in those readings is the chapter on by Tatsong Benny Liu, specifically the one dealing with tyranny and boundaries. There he talks about how Jesus is constructed as an authoritative figure and almost mirrors the authority of the emperor in Rome. That's important. So don't read. Tatsong Benny Liu is reading Mark pretty aggressively and critiquing the Gospel of Mark. Another way to understand that is to see how Mark is constructing Jesus and why. Mark is most likely written during the time Nero, the emperor of Rome, it had created a mass persecution of Christians in the city of Rome. And so those Christians, and that's probably where the Gospel of Mark was written, those Christians are feeling the pressure of systemic oppression. And so where do they go for relief? So Middleton talks about how suffering is instrumental in creating an identity. But Benny Liu shows us something. I think he's showing how insidious it is. But these early Christians, instead of looking for the emperor for help and salvation, they look for that through Jesus. And so Jesus, then in the Gospel of Mark, is the better emperor, the divine emperor, the heavenly emperor that answers the power of Nero. So pay attention to those readings. See how both of those things, the construction of Jesus and the concentration on suffering, construct an identity for Mark's readers. Okay, so pay close attention to that. Work on that midterm. It's due on Thursday. It's been up online for about a week. So I hope that's going well. If you have any questions, any comments, send me an email and let me know. Thanks a lot.